Hey everyone, Andrew back again and welcome to another DVD Blu-ray update. I've got quite a bit of stuff to get through this time around and I have watched the majority of stuff, so finally I'm able again to give my opinions. I really like giving my opinions in these updates because it lets you guys know my opinions on the movies obviously, and of course if you've never seen these before, hopefully hearing my opinion whether I liked the movie or not gives you some indication whether it's something that you might like to check out. But anyway, before I get on to the movies, I'm wanting to quickly show you a piece of merchandise that I've picked up. So I went ahead and picked up another hat, just like the Jaws, Predator and Alien hats and other stuff. Big W had a few little Ghostbuster related items in stock, which is pretty cool. So I went ahead and picked up this Ghostbusters trucker hat. So, yep, that's that. Okay, so let's get on to the movies. So DVDs first. Okay, so first up we have a couple of TV series that I recently picked up. So the first one is, of course, Ash vs. Evil Dead. Now this is the complete first season. I haven't got around to checking this one out yet, but I definitely plan to watch this during a bit of time off I have over the Christmas break, so I will be marathoning through this show. It's only 10 episodes long, so not a big commitment. Really looking forward to this. I'm a big Evil Dead fan. Army of Darkness not so much, so hopefully this has sort of got a little bit more of an Evil Dead vibe than Army of Darkness, but either way I think I'm really going to enjoy it. It's certainly got a lot of fantastic recommendations and reviews, so yeah, I cannot wait to check this one out. Next up, we have the Goldbergs, the complete second season. Now, this isn't horror related, but honestly, guys, if you're a fan of comedy, family style shows, I highly recommend this one, especially if you are a massive fan of the 80s like I am. So this show centers around a family called the Goldbergs. There they are on the cover, the three kids, the grandfather and the mother and father. And this is basically completely set in the 80s. It has a lot of great 80s nostalgia throughout, a lot of the music, a lot of movie references. It's just an absolutely hilarious show. I really enjoyed it a lot. For some reason, this took forever to get a release over here. I think the second season has been on DVD over in America for almost a year now. I know it came out sometime in 2015. And we've only just recently got a release of it. The show in general is kind of behind releases because I know they're up to the fourth season right now. In fact, I think the fourth season's almost finished airing over in the States, and season 3 and 4 still don't have DVD releases. So yeah, I'm a bit behind there, but this is a great show. You know, of course I love the 80s, so this show's right up my alley. So yeah, if you've never seen it, and as I said, you're a fan of family-based comedy shows or anything slightly related to the 80s, check this show out. Next up, we have Dying Breed, and this is one that's eluded me for quite a while now, but I came across this for really cheap on eBay and was glad to finally pick this one up. It's an Australian horror movie that I'd never seen before. And it was one that I really haven't heard too much about. It's kind of, I guess, one of the more unknown Aussie horror movies. And I have checked it out, and I will say it's a decent movie. It's not one of my all-time favourite Australian horror movies, but then it's not bad either. Basically, it's kind of similar to stuff like Hills Have Eyes and Wrong Turn, but just with a cannibal storyline to it. Basically, you see the four characters on the front. They basically take a trip out to the Tasmanian wilderness in search of a pretty rare Tasmanian tiger species, and they come across a bunch of sort of hillbilly, inbred, redneck style people, just like in Wrong Turn, who just happen to be cannibals. There's a lot more to the storyline than that. There's a bit of a backstory to everything, but I'm not really going to say too much more about it. But yeah, as I said, you know, it was decent. I would recommend it. I'm glad to finally own it because it's an extremely rare DVD to come by now. I don't know why. But yeah, it's pretty rare, so glad to add another Australian horror movie into my collection. Next up, I finally own the Anchor Bay DVD of Zombie Dawn of the Dead. This is just the Argento or European cut, and I've been wanting this particular DVD for so long now. I don't even know how long, basically ever since I first saw this cut, so probably, I don't know, like 3-4 years now. And it is out of print. It's been out of print for a while, but I got extremely lucky and picked this one up for about $8 on eBay, which I was absolutely stoked with. I didn't need this. I already own several editions of Dawn of the Dead. It's a classic movie. It needs no introduction. But the Argento or European cut is my preferred cut of this movie. So that is why I wanted to pick up this DVD, and I'm glad to finally own it. Next up, we have A Night of Horror Volume 1 with pretty awesome cover art, and that's pretty much as awesome as the movie gets for me, to be honest. It's a 10-story horror anthology, and I had high expectations going into it. It's one that I didn't really hear too much about going into it, apart from a quick sum up and, those IMDb reviews, which quite often you can't really go by. And it did actually get a relatively decent score on IMDb for a horror film, so I wanted to check it out. I was bitterly disappointed with this one. Honestly, I ended up falling asleep. It was just so boring. I didn't really care for any of the 10 stories, which really surprised me, actually. So yeah, I do not recommend this one whatsoever, which is a shame because I've really been enjoying pretty much every modern horror anthology that I've seen recently, but yeah, unfortunately, this one wasn't good at all. Next up, we have The Mind's Eye, and this actually got recommended to me from Extro the Mutilator, which I'm really, really pleased about, because this is another one that I pretty much knew nothing about before watching one of his recent updates. And I'm really glad I found out about this movie, because this is probably one of the best horror films that I have seen in quite some time. It was absolutely fantastic. So yeah, all I'm really going to say is this one basically centers around a group of people with psychokinetic powers. They end up going to this clinic run by this pretty insane doctor who's basically trying to do experiments on them to control their kinesis powers, or so they think, but he's got more sinister plans for them. That's really all I'm going to go into in terms of storyline. All I'm going to say is, if you're a fan of movies from Cronenberg, especially Scanners, if you love Scanners, you're going to absolutely love this movie. This was absolutely fantastic. It's set in the early 90s and it has a really good vibe to it. Great atmosphere throughout, really well shot. Great cast of characters, the soundtrack is excellent, and the gore effects are incredible. So yeah, I thought this was just absolutely fantastic from start to finish. It really drew me in, and I absolutely loved it. So yeah, do yourself a favour and check out The Mind's Eye. And last but certainly not least, for the DVDs, we have Scare Campaign, and this is a Australian slasher style film, which I'm really glad I decided to pick up and check out, because this one I pretty much knew nothing about before going into it, apart from what I read with the synopsis. So yeah, but of course, being a slasher style film and especially being Aussie, I had to pick it up, and yeah, this one was really, really good. I was pleasantly surprised by it. Basically, it centers around a reality TV show called Scare Campaign, and it's like a horror-themed prank show. And basically, the ratings are kind of low, and the boss really wants the team to up the ante for their final episode for the particular season that they're shooting. So that's kind of all I'm really wanting to go into in terms of the synopsis, because I don't really want to spoil too much. But it's also got an interesting underlying commentary on TV show versus web series, which was pretty interesting. And awesome kills within this movie. It doesn't have an extremely high body count, but the effects are all practical, and yeah, there's some pretty insane and brutal effects throughout, lots of gore. The ending, I wasn't a big fan of the ending. I think they could have done a better job on the ending, but other than that, this was fantastic. So yeah, I definitely highly recommend this one. It was a nice surprise. So that's Scare Campaign. Okay, and moving on to the Blu-rays now. So first up for the Blu-rays, we have the Purge Election Year, and I haven't had a chance to watch this yet, but it's definitely on my to-watch list to check out very soon. I'm a big fan of the first two Purge movies, especially the sequel Anarchy, which I thought was a big step up from the original. I don't really know too much about it, obviously, that it has an election theme to it. But yeah, being a big fan of the series in general, definitely cannot wait to check this one out. Next up we have The Hello, and this is one that I've been wanting to pick up for quite a while. Again, haven't had a chance to check this one out yet, but it's definitely high up on my to-watch list. I'm a big creature feature fan, so yeah, I'm expecting pretty good things from this movie, considering I've heard it's really good. Next up we have 31, which is Rob Zombie's latest movie, and I actually really was highly anticipating this movie. Now, I wouldn't really say I'm a Rob Zombie fan, to be completely honest, and don't hate me for this, but I've only really truly enjoyed one of his movies that I've seen, and that is obviously the Halloween remake, which I know gets a lot of hate, but I think he did a really good job on it. So I was highly anticipating this one. I thought, it sounds fantastic. I think I'm absolutely going to love it. Unfortunately, I thought this was extremely average, especially considering all the hype and buzz that it has been getting over the past few months. It was pretty lackluster to me, to be honest. I think what would have made this movie a hell of a lot better if he had had Bill Moseley and Sid Haig in this movie. I don't know why he didn't have those two characters. I thought they would have fit absolutely perfectly as a couple of the villains within this movie. I don't know. It wasn't a terrible film, but I don't know. I just thought it was kind of average. Being a Rob Zombie film, I was definitely expecting it to be a lot more violent and brutal than it was. That really let me down. The villains in this movie I thought were terrible, to be honest. They weren't menacing, they weren't scary whatsoever. I felt they toyed with the characters a little bit too much for my liking. I don't know, it was like they really wanted them to escape, basically. I didn't really care for the villains. I don't know why this movie was set in the 70s. It really didn't benefit the film whatsoever. The premise and setting was kind of cool around the whole sort of game of 31, how you had these group of people that got captured and they had to survive the 12 hours. That was cool. I liked the location and the setting. That was cool, but I don't know, the movie just fell flat, especially from a villain standpoint. The villains were just weak in my opinion. So, yeah, once again, Rob Zombie, you haven't won me over. So that's really all I have to say on 31. Next up we have I'm Not a Serial Killer, and this was kind of interesting. I checked this movie out the other day and I'm still not really 100% on my firm opinions on it. I think I'll definitely need to rewatch this one at some point. Yeah, I don't know. I'm sort of in between liking this movie and not liking it. It stars Christopher Lloyd, and I think his character within this movie is what's really making me pretty conflicted as to whether I like this movie or not. To be completely honest, I really didn't think he suited the character that he was playing whatsoever, and just knowing a lot of the other roles he's been into, I don't know, he just didn't really fit the character in my opinion, which was a big deal because he was sort of one of the main central characters within this film. I kind of liked the premise though. Basically it's about a small town serial killer who's committing a lot of murders within the small town, and it's about this psychotic teenager who also has thoughts of being a serial killer but kind of represses it. Basically, it's up to him to find out who the killer is. It's got a lot of supernatural elements to the film as well, which again I didn't think quite really worked very well for this particular film. But as I said, I don't know. I didn't hate it, but then I didn't absolutely love it either. So yeah, I'm not really too sure if I'd recommend this one or not. I think if the premise sounds interesting to you and you're a big fan of serial killer films, maybe check it out. But yeah, as I said, I'm still really not too sure how I feel about it. And last but certainly not least, we have All Through the House, which I've noticed quite a few people picking up recently and doing their Christmas slasher or Christmas horror reviews on this movie. And yeah, I finally picked it up and checked it out, and this was pretty much everything that I was expecting it to be. Just a straightforward, great time, fantastically done Christmas themed slasher. Nothing more, nothing less, in my opinion, pretty much how any slasher should be. Yeah, I really, really enjoyed this one a lot. I think the only thing that they could have slightly improved on is if it had been snowing. But other than that, I thought it was extremely well done. I thought all the characters were good, especially for sort of a more low-budget, independent style slasher film. The characters were all really good. It had a pretty high body count, and the kills in this were fantastic. My favourite kill was definitely the first one in the shower. I'm not going to spoil anything, but gore fans, and especially fans of practical effects within slasher movies, are going to be very happy with this because it's all practical effects. I really enjoyed the storyline. There's a few twists throughout, which I could kind of see coming, but at the same time I thought they were pretty well done. It definitely has nods to two particular slasher movies from the 80s, which I'm not going to give away, but anyone that's seen it will know which two particular 80s slasher movies I am talking about. One has to do with the weapon of choice, and the other one sort of has to do with the story. But yeah, this was just great. Just a really, really solid slasher movie that, yeah, is just everything that I expect and want out of a good slasher film. So yeah, if you're a slasher fan and you've never seen this and you're wanting another Christmas themed horror slasher to check out this season, check out All Through the House. It was really, really good. Okay, so there you go. That does it for another DVD Blu-ray update. If you've seen any of these movies, definitely let me know what you think of them in the comments section below. I hope everyone's enjoyed this update, and thank you for watching.